Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Saturday Production Facts, Episode 8, with me, Colin Andrew. Joining me, as always, is producer extraordinaire, the BOC, Barry O'Connell. Give it up for him. Excellent stuff.
Thank you, Colin.
How are you today, Barry?
I'm pretty good. I'm going to apologise in advance. You might hear some music in the background. My partner is just legging it around the flat, cleaning stuff, so there's tunes bouncing.
That's quite alright. That's quite acceptable. In fact, I encourage such behaviour. But I tell you what, today we are going to be discussing the song that started it all. Too Far From Kind, ladies and gentlemen. And I realised that we've been doing this this is episode 8, yeah. And we've yet to touch on Too Far From Kind, which really, has some excellent production moments. So really, it should have been addressed long ago, but
well,
sure,
it was
here we
your
are
first
now.
single, so I think we went impressively long without addressing it.
Actually, that's true. That's true. Well, it just shows we've got a lot of stuff to talk about, which is great. Now, I have in my notes here that it was one of the first things that I played for you, I believe. And I think you kind of clocked it from the beginning that it was going to be the lead single, right? It was going to be the first one, the debut, as it were.
The debut.
The debut.
Yeah, absolutely. I know there was just some kind of characteristics in it that I was like, yeah, that's definitely the first one that we should kind of, establish the Colin Andrew sound with,
Yeah. Because on a personal note, I kind of feel like it bridges the gap, between my old songwriting and my kind of newer style of narrative. So it felt like a good natural place to begin this sort of new chapter of starting to officially release my music, because I have kind of old stuff recorded and they were of a certain standard, but now we've just jumped up and now we're 2 years into a solo career, which is pretty interesting and pretty nuts to think about.
You're actually it's nearly 3 years, because
True.
I think once you hit October, that's 3 years. So not far off.
That's 3 years of us. 3 years of us working together, which is pretty class. Amazing to think. I've enjoyed every minute of it. But the song, right? It became sort of the blueprint for everything that we do, right? We established our work method a little bit, and we've refined it a bit since. But it also a lot of the features musically, the backing vocals, certain guitar bits. I think it gave us our walls. It gave us our parameters, if you know what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, it kind of laid the foundation of how we layered things and how we wanted. We kind of had building blocks for each track. Then we kind of knew how we wanted to come at them because of Too Far From Kind.
It was a great jump off point for the rest of them. Then you kind of have. There are no rules when it comes to production, but I think it was we established a bit of a sound between the two of us working together. Obviously I bring you these songs and you bring your years of experience to it, but I think we grew and learnt together, didn't we?
Yeah, of course. I mean, you never stop learning, which is part of the beauty of it, really, isn't it? But you're that's what I love about collaborating. You're working with other people, and there's going to be new results that you never may have expected by doing your stuff yourself. It keeps it fresh.
True. I got really excited, man, when I listened to this track back today for the first time in honestly a while, and it sounds it's funny because you get a bit of a distance on something, a distance from something, and I was able to just really enjoy it, which I wasn't really able to do in the past. I think you need a bit of a distance from something, especially your own project, to kind of really appreciate it objectively.
Yeah.
It is really hard to view your own stuff objectively, and it's easy to be critical, but I think with a little bit of space, starting to really enjoy certain moments from it that
You're just walking down the street bopping to your own tunes now, aren't you?
I literally was because I suppose you're normally nitpicking, taking out bits that maybe I'd have done that differently, but this time I listened to it, I was just no, I'm really happy with how it turned out. It was a pretty cracking debut, I have to be honest. I have to admit.
Well, I'm always happy to hear things like that, because obviously that's the goal for me, is for you to be happy with the result. So yeah.
Yeah, true. Well, it just makes me eager to get back in and record more stuff again. And I think it's going to be it's not going to be a reset. We'll be informed by what we've already created, but these new songs are really exciting to me.
Well, what I'm most excited about is that for the next set, we actually get to be in the same place and the same room to put all of this stuff together.
Very true.
Because with this initial set of like four to five releases now, actually, we went from we got to demo them together, but then we were in different countries for like the rest of the process. And Nothing Sweeter, we got like a taster of what it was like to work together before the pandemic like slammed into that. And now I'm just looking forward to really getting in there and just working the whole way through the development process, and from pre-production to recording to post to mixing, all of it.
And we'll do it in a lot quicker time frame as well, because that was the thing about Nothing Sweeter, was we had demoed it 2 years previously, but like we pulled like the whole thing together in 2 months, which for us is like very quick, and it's a really layered track, so I think that's impressive on any level. So I'm pretty excited to see what happens when we get in on these new ones. And we're learning all the time about our work dynamic. I've totally gone off script here now on what we had previously thought we'd talk about.
We're murder for that.
But it's all interesting, and actually I hope it's enjoyable to hear, because the future is bright. I've had much negativity and maybe on my social media and stuff this week, but I'm ready to kind of get into the next chapter. But I wanted to pick out a few moments from Too Far From Kind, getting back to what we initially wanted to talk about.
Yes, wonderful.
One interesting thing I thought was cool, and one thing that I was impressed by you, was your sort of recording techniques, and maybe you'd like to talk about a reverb that you created when we were doing the claps. So this was very early on, recording claps in Orlando, Florida, almost 3 years ago.
Yeah, the the poor man's bathroom reverb. Yeah, I have a tendency to throw mics in interesting places, like an auxiliary mic. So I'll have the primary mic placed in a kind of, obviously I'll spend some time making sure it's in the right place and we have a good sound for like the close sound. But if I have a spare mic on me, I like to just throw it in like another space to kind of create another to capture the sound in a different environment. So when we were recording this, I think you posted a picture of this. You should post it again, or like put it around this video as well, because there's a picture of you doing the claps, looking like a happy man, with like blankets surrounding you, because we had to like put up blankets to stop the hallway in my room from resonating too much and getting that kind of like flutter echo. But also there was a bathroom directly in front of you, but we left like a little crack in the door, and through there on like the sink area I put this surface boundary mic. It was, I don't know, for any nerds out there, specifically an AKG CBL99, very handy little budget boundary mic, and just like placed it in there so that when you clapped, the resonance of your clapping actually went through into the bathroom, and then the mic was actually catching the reflections of the bathroom, therefore getting kind of like obviously a verb. So then I kind of just like blended that into the clap sounds, so the verb you're hearing is like a live verb,
which I think is really cool. That's your view into battling acoustics, which is obviously a huge thing.
There's obviously a lot more to it, but I swear I'll probably bore the crap out of you. So we're just going to leave it at that nice little synopsis.
That was good to tighten the synopsis there. I appreciate it. I enjoyed it, and I will post that photo again, because it gives you some sort of indication as to what that looks like. But I remember when we did it, I was like, yeah, this guy knows what he's talking about. So whether it added to the sound, which I think it did, but whether it did or not, you impressed me on that occasion. And so when our courting was just beginning, but now
there's a message to all up and coming producers. If you want to look like you know what you're doing, just throw a mic somewhere and be like, oh yeah, trust me, I know exactly what's going to happen here.
yeah, I was just like, this guy's like Brian Eno from Passage West. It's class.
I'll take it any day of the fucking week. Sorry.
That's great. Yeah, exactly. But another thing I wanted to address, because there's loads of moments in Too Far From Kind, and I think we will dissect them as the week goes on. Maybe we'll touch on it again next week. But the opening intro, obviously every intro is an opening, so I don't know what I'm talking about. The reverb, I'll cut this out. The vocal slide at the beginning. It took some slight convincing. So this was the passing over of the trust. This was the trust test, as it were.
I think this was like, it was like kind of the introductory moment to start building the trust for you to let me get more experimental with how I was approaching the production in your tracks. And also, to be fair, when I have notions, generally they're sometimes quite late at night. Like, I think so what happened with this is I went to bed. I couldn't get to sleep because I'm a terrible sleeper. And I just, like, something clicked and I was like, oh my God, I got it. Because initially with Too Far From Kind, we found that, like, when it started, it kind of didn't really hit. You know, we kind of it just started and you're like, okay, we're in.
Yeah.
But I felt like it needed something before that so that we actually properly fell into the song.
Yes.
And I was kind of lying there, and for some reason, do you know the THX thing that always comes on, like, before movies? It's, maybe not as much now, but, like, definitely, like, late 90s. That, but, like, it started really low down and kind of just there's this whole swell and there's multiple frequencies coming up, and then it just comes into this harmonious, beautiful thing. And that, I was just like, oh, I'm going to borrow that idea. And, like, I just hopped out of my bed, turned on my laptop, just threw a mic in front of myself, and then just started going, and just, like, hit send. And I don't think you actually saw it until the next morning, and you were probably just like, what is this? What's wrong with this person?
What is he doing? Yeah.
And then you got back onto me, and you were like, what? And I was like, so do you know the way... I think I sold you by telling you about the THX thing. Yeah. I was like, you go into the movies, lights get dimmed, this thing comes on, you're like, and then you're dropped into the movie. I was like,
exactly.
Do it with the song. Weird gliss thing, dropped into the song. And then I think the moment you heard it in context, where we went from that and then landed in, you were like, right, he's not completely mental.
That was it. Because the initial version was just like, we start, but it's like we're all falling in the door together, but this is, and it became a trend in kind of everything we do production wise, but it's like this build up of tension and then the release, or it's kind of like a roller coaster going up and up and up, and it's a false drop, it's just levels across, but then you're in.
Yeah.
So it was a good scene setter. It was a good, just like, you're being dropped into a song now. It's not just like song starts, you know you're there, and we kind of set the scene.
It made it hit in like a whole other way. Like, everything just made sense the minute we landed into it then, and it was just very satisfying when you just got that acoustic guitar and those, like, kind of, I don't know, exciting, like, lead lines and stuff. It was just like, here we are.
A great riff, but we'll dissect that riff at another stage.
Yes.
But that to me, what the song is a lot about, and it's actually one of the best features, if you don't mind me saying, of your production, is like little Easter eggs, little pit stops, little moments throughout the song.
We're going back to the Candyman.
The Candyman, yeah, exactly, yeah. But that's what you always manage to keep things interesting, as we go on, and complement the song, complement the narrative, and that's probably the key to being a great producer. You might agree.
You're too kind.
Too Far From Kind. Brilliant. Well, I tell you what. Let's call this an introductory course into Too Far From Kind.
Yeah. Lesson 1.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we've broke the ice now on it, and we will break it down further. Maybe next week we'll start to pick out a few moments. So maybe I'll put up during the week and see if people want to hear about specific moments, how they came about, where the origin of the idea was, because sometimes, ideas come to you late at night, which, like you say, they often do. So I think every interesting moment does actually have a bit of a funny story behind it, or a reference of something like that, because you're pulling from your influences all the time. And we continue to do so.
Yeah, I think this is actually a good song for stories about different moments. There's some cool stuff we did with this.
Yeah, absolutely. And it took ages. Not that it took ages, but it was like this. There's a lot of stuff in this track, and it did take a long time to actually put together. So, you're enjoying 4 minutes of really hard work.
Well, I think the reason this took a bit longer is as well, like anything, when you're have that establishing track where you're like, this is what I want people to kind of expect from me now, and this is the bar, and I'm going to start going,
Yeah, exactly. We laid down a marker, I think, from the start, and that was really important. Like, that was something that that was our goal, was to make sure we set ourselves up strong, because there was a lot of experience before that. I've been playing for 10 years prior to that. You've been producing for around the same length of time, so it was just like, let's put everything that we've already... What am I trying to say here? Let's just...
let's merge.
Let's merge. Let's start strong. Yeah, exactly. You're dead right. It's combining our experience and setting up a marker, and we keep trying to beat ourselves. That's the point, is you have to keep trying to improve all the time.
Absolutely. It's like the day, like... Tons of people say this, I know, but it's very true. Like the day you think that you're finished with something, or that you know everything, you're done basically. Like, but not in a good way.
Yeah. No, I agree. Yeah. And I guess during this period, especially, like, people have found it really hard to motivate themselves to get better and better, but you just have to keep trying, because there is going to be, the better you get at something, the more the incremental changes are bigger, if you know what I mean. As in, like, you can only improve a tiny amount if you've got to a level where you're very good at something, your improvements are tiny from that, moment on. But that's, I don't know what I'm trying to say. That's what I'm trying to say.
I get what you mean. It's like when you get to that kind of virtuoso level of things, like, you're still learning. The jumps may not be as massive, but like over courses of time, it's still noticeable that you're taking things on. But I think because some of the stuff that we're doing, like, we're not just in kind of one area. It's not just like where you're just being a musician and I'm just being a producer. We cross over each other's lines a lot of the time, and we're doing tons of other stuff. I mean, like, you're basically your own press agent at the same time as all of this. And like on the side, I'm also like off doing sound design for like loads of different projects and working on other like music, and eventually getting towards working on my own stuff as well. Like, I mean, there's tons of stuff like just moving, so that the improvements, I think, for us are still kind of that we get some nice jumps in there.
True, and it all feeds into each other, whatever you're working on. For example, like, all my songs are in Dadgad now because I learned Dadgad working in Raglan Road, where we worked together, and now I do everything in that guitar tuning, whereas I hadn't touched it prior to that. So you do take on influences from your experience, big time,
Massively so, yes.
And yeah, so I think that's a good point to finish up on. Keep at it. Whatever your dream is, whatever you're doing, just keep doing it, because you're going to improve, even if you're not seeing it. It's hard to see it when you're in the middle of it, but if you look out and realize how far you've come over a period of time, it's worth it.
Yeah, and just look at the people around you.
Yeah, and say, I'm better than him. No, I'm joking.
I was thinking more of a communal thing, whereas like, you meet new people and you learn things from them, but we can go that way as well. Yeah.
No, absolutely, you're dead right. Exactly, yeah, because like the Dadgad thing, I picked that up off someone else and ran with it in my own direction. So take as much stuff on as possible, but then add your own flavor to it as well.
There you go. That's a good note to
There you
finish on.
go. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much. That concludes episode 8 of Saturday Production Facts with me, Colin Andrew, and Mr. Barry O'Connell. So, thank you very much, and perhaps we'll play ourselves out, will we? With a little bit of Too Far From Kind. So thank you. We'll see you again next week for episode 9. I said it true, but the tail was on you. Won't make much sense. Good night. See you later. It all ends in a mess. I